I had been with Rose for 6 years. I originally thought we would get married, have children, and live happily ever after. But on my birthday, Rose's first love returned to the country. That's when I found out I was just a substitute for her first love. She had never truly loved me. Since that was the case, I chose to let go and give her the happiness she deserved. On the phone, I said to my sister, "Sis, I've agreed to the wedding plans." She replied, "That's great, Robert. I'm so glad you've come to your senses." Chapter 1. I could hear the excitement in her voice, and then she added, "Don't worry, the person I'll introduce to you will definitely be someone you'll like. By the way, I haven't seen Rose in years. Be sure to invite her too. I need to thank her for taking care of you all these years." I nodded. "Sure, but I don't think she'll be able to make it." I sat on the couch, my voice flat, my eyes fixed on the TV in front of me. On the screen, Lou Group's CEO, Rose, and the newly returned movie star Ethan were sweetly embracing each other. The media reporters were all over the story congratulating the couple. My sister asked, "Not free. Could it be because her first love is back?" Oh, right. How could I forget today's the day movie star Ethan returned to the country? After all these years, they must finally be getting together. My heart tightened as I realized even my sister knew about Rose's first love, while I had been a fool playing the role of her substitute for 6 years. All these years, Rose had kept her reputation clean with no rumors or scandals. No scandals. That's true. During the years I was with her, I never caused any trouble. During the day, I was a proper student, and at night I was a proper sugar baby to her. I thought she loved me, but just a few days ago I found out the reason she had kept me around was that I resembled Ethan, her unforgettable first love. She had always just seen me as a stand-in for him. I asked, "Sis, did you know Rose had a first love?" She replied, "Of course I did." When her first love Ethan went abroad for his dreams, Rose was heartbroken for a long time and almost got depressed. Thankfully, she eventually got over it. Rose was my sister Helen's college roommate, and they had always been close. So when I came to study here, Helen asked Rose to look after me. Over time, I developed feelings for Rose, and naturally we began living together. After college graduation, I couldn't bear to leave Rose, so I gave up my family's plan for me to return home and take over the business, and instead found a photography job here to stay. I had wanted to tell my sister about me and Rose for a long time, but Rose always stopped me. She never wanted to make our relationship public to her friends and family. At the time, Rose told me the timing wasn't right, and being naive, I thought we had a long future ahead of us, and that we'd have a chance to share the good news later. Looking back now, there was no need to bring it up at all. My sister said, "By the way, Robert, Rose, and Ethan have a great relationship. If you see them, can you ask Ethan for an autograph for me? I'll send you some extra spending money." I felt bitter inside. Even my sister admired Ethan, the famous movie star. Here I was just an unknown photographer, feeling completely insignificant. She asked, "When are you coming back?" I replied, "Sis, I'll probably be back in about 2 weeks." Before I could finish, the door opened. At that moment, Rose walked in. She asked, "Where are you going in 2 weeks?" I quickly hung up the phone and looked up at Rose, who had returned. She was alone, no one was with her. After hugging her first love at the airport today, how come she's back alone now? But since she was back, a small part of my unease subsided. Maybe I should still try to hold on to her. I suddenly felt like I was rushing things by agreeing to marry so soon. Rose's intense gaze fell on my face. She continued, "Are you spacing out? You still haven't answered me. You said you're going somewhere in 2 weeks. I replied, "Someone in my family is getting married." I made up an excuse, glad it didn't raise any suspicions. Rose didn't ask more questions, but instead her shy eyes were locked on me. My face reddened slightly as something crossed my mind. I said, "Rose, if you don't need anything, I'll head upstairs." Before I could turn around, she hugged me from behind, pressing her warm body against mine. My heart raced as if it was about to burst, but the heat in my chest was quickly doused by a cold splash of water. If I hadn't seen her hugging another man today, and if her body didn't still carry the scent of that man, I might have thought she actually liked me. But she clearly didn't love me, so why was she being so affectionate? Chapter 2. The woman nestled in my arms and her ethereal voice broke the silence. She asked, "Did you see the news today?" "Yeah, I saw it." I swallowed hard. Could this be her final hug? She asked again. "What do you think about it?" I remained silent. She continued, "There's a welcome back party tonight. I'll take you there. I remember your sister's a fan of Ethan, so you can ask him for an autograph on her behalf. I'm sure he'll agree. Okay, she said. I have to go to work, so I won't be staying for dinner. Rose grabbed her car keys and phone ready to leave. I couldn't help but try to keep her. After all, today was my birthday, and I couldn't believe she had forgotten. I said, Rose, why don't you stay for a little while and eat before you go? The food's already ready. She replied, No, I have a meeting with a client. You go ahead and eat. I'll have my assistant pick you up for the party later. I didn't insist. I just silently watched as Rose walked out of the door. In the past, every year on my birthday, she would give me small gifts. A scarf she had knitted herself or figurines of things I liked. Rose knew I loved photography. Whenever she heard about an auction for camera equipment, no matter how much it cost, she would buy it for me. This year, everything had changed. She no longer cared about me. In the end, I threw all the dishes I had carefully prepared into the trash, just like my love for her, no longer worth holding on to. Just after throwing the trash away, my phone pinged with a series of birthday greetings. I was surprised that my friends had remembered my birthday. Even my older sisters had sent red envelopes. At that moment, 2 strangers added me as friends. I didn't recognize them, but usually people who had my number were either friends or acquaintances, so I accepted their requests. The first profile picture was of a lazy cat. As soon as I accepted the request, the person sent me a huge red envelope accompanied by pictures of flowers and wine wishing me a happy birthday. I asked, Who are you? The person replied, Hello, my fiancé. Happy birthday. I didn't expect this fiancé, whom I hadn't even met yet, to be so generous. It looked like I'd have to make an even bigger gesture when it was her birthday. The second profile picture seemed a bit familiar. As soon as I accepted the request, the person's moments popped up with a post. The picture showed a plate of shrimp and a pair of hands peeling the shrimp. I recognized those hands. The nails were painted with designs I had done myself. I was stunned. Rose, who always claimed she never did anything with her hands, was peeling shrimp for someone else. This was something I had never experienced in all the years we were together. Back then, I always peeled shrimp for her while she worked on her laptop, quietly waiting for me to feed her. There were times when I pricked my fingers on the shrimp shells and bled, and it always hurt, but I just endured it. But now it seemed Rose was peeling shrimp for someone else. This was the difference between being loved and not being loved. The caption read, Round and round I've returned home, but she's still waiting for me. She knows I love shrimp, so she bought all the shrimp from the restaurant. A sharp pain shot through my chest. My mind raced as I recalled Rose's profile picture frame. No wonder this new contacts frame looked familiar. It was clearly a couple's frame. All these years, I had never been given such treatment because Rose was afraid that anyone would find out about us. I had been the only one kept in the dark all this time while she had already made it clear to everyone that her heart belonged to someone else. Chapter 3. I had unknowingly fallen asleep on the sofa, and it was Rose's voice that woke me up. It was almost time for the dinner party. She said, Change into this. As my little brother, you can't embarrass me tonight, got it? Rose handed me a box. I hadn't planned on going, but under her gaze, I reluctantly changed into the suit she had prepared for me. She said, Robert, you look really handsome. Your future girlfriend is going to be so lucky. Rose came over and adjusted my clothes, clearly pleased with my appearance. A sense of pride quietly swelled in my chest. Was she trying to distance herself from me, or was she giving me a warning? In any case, it didn't matter. I had already decided to leave. I nervously swallowed, my voice almost failing me, and I reminded her, Sis, it's time to go. She nodded. Let's go. She walked ahead of me, and I made sure to keep my distance, no longer engaging in any intimate gestures. We walked in silence, one in front, the other behind. Rose sat in the driver's seat, and I initially planned to sit in the front passenger seat. However, Rose frowned and said, Robert, you sit in the back today. Okay. I didn't ask why and obediently opened the door to the back seat. I knew the front seat was typically reserved for a girlfriend or boyfriend, but now our roles had clearly changed. At that moment, Rose's phone rang, its ringtone echoing in the back seat. She said, Robert, pass me my phone. It was almost second nature for Rose to toss her phone into the back seat as soon as she got into the car. Her pale arm stretched back to grab it, and I couldn't help but think back to the photo from last night. The image of her peeling shrimp for Ethan. I froze for a moment, lost in the thought. Rose snapped me out of it. Robert, the phone. I came back to my senses and reached for it, handing it to her. As I did, I noticed the name on the caller ID, husband. I hadn't expected Rose to be serious about marrying someone else. But what was I, a sugar baby, or just a little brother? What kind of little brother spends the night hugging and sleeping together? Rose didn't explain. Maybe she had just accepted it herself. On my phone, I had messages filled with birthday wishes from friends, but not a single one from Rose. She said, "Okay, I'll be right there to pick you up." Her voice was soft, carrying a hint of joy. When she turned back to face me, her smile was a little awkward. She said, "Sorry, Robert, Ethan's car broke down and I need to go pick him up." Okay. My expression didn't change and I continued quietly scrolling through my phone. She said, "Robert." I looked up at Rose. She continued, "Robert, I'm not getting any younger. I should start thinking about getting married." I nodded. "Okay, I hope you find happiness." Chapter 4. Is this really how you feel? Yeah. The car quickly arrived at the spot where Ethan was waiting by the roadside. Ethan instinctively reached for the back seat, but when he saw I was already sitting there, he stopped. "Ethan, you sit in the front," Rose said with a gentle smile, looking at him. Ethan replied, "I get carsick in the front, so I'll sit in the back." All right then. Rose didn't say much more, and after Ethan got in, she started driving again. Once in the car, Ethan greeted me. "Hey, kid." I responded, "Hey." Rose said, "Ethan, this is Robert, Helen's little brother." Ethan replied, "Oh, you're the whiny little brother Helen used to talk about." "I can't believe you've grown up so much." His tone carried a hint of teasing. I didn't react much. It was true that I used to cry a lot when I was younger. Rose smiled and came to my defense. "Ethan, don't tease him. He's shy." She paused for a moment before adding, "Robert, this is Ethan, my fiancé. He'll be your brother-in-law from now on." "Okay, sister." This would be the last time I called her sister. After today, perhaps we would never cross paths again. I said, "Hello, brother-in-law." Rose seemed quite pleased with my attitude. If this had been the past, I would have caused a scene by now. In the past, when she returned home, drunk, supported by a male model, I would have made a fuss and we'd have argued for days. Ethan said, "Rose, by the way, I was in such a rush earlier that I forgot to bring my violin. Can you go back and grab it for me? And also, can you pick up the makeup artist and my assistant? You know I'm a celebrity. My image is important." Rose said, "Okay." When Ethan said this, he cast a meaningful glance at me. I understood. This man was deliberately provoking me. Makeup artists, assistants, and the violin. If all of them got in the car, there would clearly be no room left. So, Rose pulled over to the side of the road, then sent me the address in a 2,000 RMB red envelope saying, "Robert, why don't you just take a taxi? I've sent you the address." I understood. This wasn't a birthday gift, just the taxi fare. Normally, her birthday red envelopes would be 520 or 1314 with good meanings behind them. I didn't say anything and silently got out of the car. As I got out, I clearly saw a glimmer of coldness in Ethan's eyes, followed by a victorious smile. Standing by the roadside, I watched as Rose's car slowly drove away, disappearing from my sight. I opened the taxi app. I noticed the location was quite remote with hardly any cars passing by. I walked along hoping to catch a ride, but even when cars passed, no one was willing to stop. By the time I arrived at the hotel, the banquet had already started. Chapter 5, Rose and Ethan, as the stars of the banquet, were already being fawned over on stage as they gave their speeches. I quietly entered the exhibition hall and found a corner where no one noticed me. I grabbed a quick bite to eat. After a 2-hour walk, my feet were sore and blisters had already formed. Finally, the dance segment began. As the main guest, Ethan naturally invited Rose to dance the first song. Taking advantage of this moment, I went to the restroom. When I saw my own disheveled appearance in the mirror, I splashed some cold water on my face. Suddenly, I was grabbed from behind and a sack was thrown over my head. A few people started beating me. One of them said, "Look at you. You think you can compete with Ethan for his girlfriend." Exactly. This is what happens when you offend Ethan, the movie king. They kept hitting me until they were tired, then finally stopped. I was in so much pain, and before I could even pull myself out of the sack, I heard the bathroom door click. It was clearly locked from the outside. Despite the noise in the restroom, no one seemed to notice. Clearly, the hotel staff had been bribed. I struggled to tear the sack off my body. Every inch of me ached, and I could hardly stand. When I finally crawled over to the door, I realized it wouldn't open. The lights went out just then as well. I have claustrophobia. As a child, I was locked in the basement by my friends, and by the time my older sisters came to find me, I had already passed out. Now I felt lightheaded and trembling. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed Rose's number. The phone rang a few times before it was picked up. On the other end, I heard, "Robert, your sister drank too much and is already asleep." But I clearly heard Rose's voice asking, "Who is it?" Ethan quickly hung up. I knew Rose must have been with Ethan. When I tried calling again, the phone had already been turned off. I was left alone in the bathroom for the rest of the night. Of course, I fainted later on due to fear. The next day, the staff found me and sent me to the hospital. Thankfully, I was treated in time, and when I finally woke up, it had been 5 days. I took out my phone hoping to see if Rose had tried to contact me, but all I found was a simple 2-word message: on business trip. The date was 5 days ago. I absent-mindedly scrolled to Ethan's moments. There were photos of meals, sightseeing, and travel check-ins. It was clear that they had gone on a honeymoon early. After being discharged, I went to the hotel to check the surveillance footage, only to be told that the cameras were broken and couldn't be checked. No surveillance meant no evidence to prove that the people who attacked me were Ethan's fans. What a coincidence the cameras just happened to be broken, and I had no way of checking them. I had no choice but to return home in disappointment. I couldn't help but wonder, how did Ethan's fans even know who I was? I'd barely ever been in public with Rose. I hadn't expected Ethan to harbor such hostility toward me. I had no evidence, so I decided to return home and pack up my things. I didn't have much, mostly photography equipment. But as soon as I opened the door, I was greeted by the sight of the two of them cozy and affectionate kissing in the living room. I hadn't expected to walk in on such a scene. Chapter 6. I didn't know whether to leave or just say, "You two continue." Rose said, "Robert, you're back. Ethan will be staying with us for the next few days." As she said this, the two of them were still tightly pressed together, reluctant to part. Okay. I had no issue with Ethan moving in. After all, he would be the one in charge here sooner or later. Ethan said, "Rose, you're so good to me. Once the heating in my place is set up, I'll head back." Rose replied, "Why go back? What's mine is yours. We're not strangers." Rose gave a soft laugh, then let go of Ethan and walked to the fridge to grab him a drink. It wasn't until just then that I realized Ethan didn't like cold drinks. Rose said, "You must be exhausted from packing earlier. Let me heat up some milk for you." Okay. They exchanged knowing glances, and I, unwilling to stay as a third wheel, decided to head to my room to pack up. As I reached the door to the room on the second floor, I suddenly froze. On the floor, scattered all around, were my photography equipment and film rolls, some of which were falling out onto the ground. There was also a water stain on the floor with some of the film soaked in water. A lot of my equipment was piled up as though it had been deliberately broken. Ethan said, "Robert, I'm sorry. When I saw you weren't back yet, I was cleaning up your room and accidentally knocked your stuff over. I don't know how much your equipment costs, but if you want, just name a price and I'll pay you back." Rose, hearing the noise from upstairs, came up and glanced at the scattered equipment. She casually replied, "It's just some photography equipment, Ethan. You didn't do it on purpose. This stuff isn't worth much. We'll just buy some more later." I clenched my fists tightly. These were the photos I had worked on for many years, pouring so much effort into them, and now they were destroyed. Some of it was even due to be sent to the magazine tonight. Rose knew these things were precious. She never allowed anyone to clean in my room, yet she let Ethan in here. I was furious. If the room outside was like this, what about inside? I quickly walked into the room. I found my laptop lying on the floor alone and untouched. The floor was soaked with water, as if someone had intentionally flooded the place. Clearly, all the data on the laptop was gone. This laptop contained some of the photos and materials I was planning to publish. Ethan said, "Robert, when I came in, I was shocked too. Did you leave the water running?" When I came in, I rushed to turn off the water, and I even tripped over the computer. As soon as Rose heard this, a look of panic crossed her face. She asked, "You tripped, are you okay? Let me see." Ethan replied, "I'm fine, just a little bruise on my knee. It's nothing." Rose then turned to me, her voice sharp. "Robert, what were you thinking? Why didn't you turn off the tap?" I was speechless. I opened my mouth, but clearly anyone could tell that if I hadn't turned off the tap, the water wouldn't just stay in the room. It would have flooded downstairs by now, and to get to the bathroom, you wouldn't even need to pass by the computer desk. Now Rose was clearly trying to defend Ethan. Rose said, "I'll take you to the hospital." When she looked at Ethan, her voice was gentle, but when she turned to me, her eyes were filled with anger, and her tone was cold. She said, "Robert, you better clean up your room while you're here. I don't want to come back to this mess when Ethan is living here." Chapter 7. After Rose finished speaking, she took Ethan to the hospital. Not long after they left, I started to pack up the film rolls. Fortunately, I managed to salvage some. As for the damaged equipment and computer, I called in a professional to handle it. I was informed that most of it was beyond repair, with many parts no longer available on the market. The undamaged items I carefully packed up myself. I arranged for a courier, and to be safe, paid 10 times the usual amount for insurance, sending the equipment back to my hometown. However, the courier hadn't gone far when the van was stopped, and a fire was set to burn everything inside. When the courier called me crying to explain what happened, I stood frozen in place, half in shock. How could this happen? I knew from start to finish that Ethan was targeting me. I hadn't done anything wrong in these past days, so why was he doing this to me? It had happened before at the hotel, and now it was the courier. What would happen next? Just as I was trying to make sense of it, Rose and Ethan got out of the car. I couldn't hold it in any longer and stormed up to Ethan, grabbing him roughly. I shouted, "Ethan, what the hell is going on? Why are you doing this?" Rose yelled. "Robert, what are you doing? Let go of Ethan right now." A flash of displeasure crossed her face as she grabbed my wrist. Her voice was cold and stern, but my gaze remained fixed on Ethan. I said, "What am I doing? Why don't you ask him what he's been doing?" My eyes were bloodshot, my entire body on the verge of exploding with anger. Ethan replied, "Rose, I think I accidentally broke his photography equipment. He's still mad about it." "Sorry, little brother," he said with feigned remorse. "I'll pay you back for your equipment. Tell me how much it cost and I'll have my manager transfer the money." Ethan shot me a look that was full of arrogance and mockery. Rose said, "Isn't this already settled, Robert? Why are you still hanging on to this? I'm ordering you now to let go of him." Rose squeezed my wrist tightly, causing me pain, but eventually I released her grip. I slumped to the side, feeling utterly helpless, as if my soul had left me. Rose said, "I already told you I'll buy a new set of equipment. You don't need to keep dwelling on this." After all, Ethan didn't mean it. "In the end, you didn't even turn off the tap." I didn't respond. Every piece of equipment was something she had given me, and I cherished them so much, never wanting to let them get damaged. Many of them were rare and no longer available for purchase. But to Ethan, none of it mattered. Did that mean I didn't matter either? How could I have forgotten I was always Ethan's substitute? I should have seen it long ago. Rose didn't love me, she just loved the fact that I looked like Ethan. My heart died completely at that moment. That evening, I spent the night on the couch just trying to get some rest, but I could hear the sounds of Rose and Ethan in the upstairs room, their voices filled with intimacy. I lay downstairs quietly, enduring the torment of it all. Chapter 8. The next morning, I quickly washed up, changed clothes, and was ready to leave. Just then, Rose came downstairs dressed in a black lace nightgown. When we used to sleep together, she would wear something equally provocative. I couldn't help but notice the hickeys on her pale neck. I quickly looked away, grabbing a coat from the side and heading for the door. If Ethan saw me looking at Rose like that, I couldn't imagine the drama that might unfold. Rose asked, "Robert, did you make breakfast?" Rose stretched with a yawn and slowly made her way toward the couch. It was her usual morning routine. She would lounge on the couch for a while, then ask me to massage her shoulders to relax her, and after that I'd bring her breakfast and say, "Queen, please, enjoy your meal." I replied, "No, I didn't make it. I have some things to do, so I'm heading out." I averted my gaze and stepped out the door. She asked, "Wait, where are you going?" Rose, like a lazy cat, lay on the couch, her alluring nightgown barely covering her thighs. Her body exuded a sensual charm. Hadn't she and Ethan enjoyed themselves enough last night? Was she now trying to seduce me? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to look away. "I'm just heading to the studio. I'll be back later," she replied. "Your studio doesn't make much, does it? You're always traveling for work. Come here and give me a shoulder massage and I'll drive you there later." Rose laid back on the couch, waiting for me to comply. I replied, "It's fine, I can drive myself." I practically ran out of the house trying to escape. When I reached the underground parking lot, I received a call from Rose. She asked, "Robert, where's the oil?" "It's in the cabinet under the stove." She asked again, "Which one's the salt and which one's the sugar?" "The salt's on the left, sugar's on the right in the spice jar." I gritted my teeth as I answered. I couldn't believe that Rose was cooking breakfast for Ethan. It was clear. Love and indifference couldn't be more obvious. I closed my eyes for a moment. Maybe it was time to put an end to this. I'd be leaving soon. Just as I was about to start the car, I noticed the fuel gauge was empty. When I got out to check, I found that all 4 tires had been slashed. I couldn't take it anymore. These awful stalker fans would do anything for their idol. I pounded the side of the car in frustration, my fingers leaving deep imprints on the shiny surface. Just as I walked out of the parking garage ready to grab a cab and go to the company to quit, a car suddenly drove straight toward me. I had no time to dodge, and the impact sent me crashing into a flower bed. The car sped off, leaving me behind. I struggled to pull out my phone and call Rose, but no one picked up. Looking at my bloody hand, I realized I had been slashed by the flower bed when I was hit. Then everything went black. When I woke up again, I found myself in a hospital, brought in by a sanitation worker who had found me. The nurse had tried calling Rose, but she never answered. Then the TV showed a broadcast of the Liu Group with CEO Mr. Liu and Ethan touring the company. The comments below were all full of well wishes, hoping the two of them would find happiness together. Chapter 9. I stared faintly at the 2 people on the TV, their sweetness almost unbearable, and despite the pain in my hand, I forced myself to say, "I'll sign it myself." After signing, I fell unconscious again. When I woke up, the room was pitch dark and I was alone. I moved my body to turn on the light. I hated the dark, even though there were dim streetlights outside. The silence was eerily frightening. My fingers were wrapped in thick bandages. My whole body was in pain, but thankfully my legs were still intact. I spent 3 days alone in the hospital. The ugly scars on my hand were particularly chilling to look at. At that moment, I received a message from the studio. I glanced at it, and the boss said the photos from the last shoot were great and encouraged me to keep up the good work. I thought for a while and decided to tell the boss I was resigning. I called and said, "Sorry, boss, I want to resign. I originally wanted to talk to you in person and hand over everything, but now I'm in the hospital after being hit by a car, so I can only tell you this over the phone." The boss asked, "Hit by a car, what happened?" I didn't answer. After all, in C-City, I didn't have any friends. Even if I knew who did this, I couldn't find any evidence. He said, "Don't worry, I have some connections here. Tell me what happened and I'll investigate it for you." Okay. Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't expect that in my moment of solitude and helplessness, it was the studio boss who was willing to help me. He said, "I'll come over in the afternoon and discuss the details with you." In the afternoon, the boss came over with some fruit. As soon as he saw me lying in bed, his eyes were filled with pity. I felt guilty and said, "Thank you, boss, for coming to see me." He said, "It's nothing, but are you really resigning?" I replied, "Yes, I'm afraid continuing like this will only drag the studio down." The boss angrily said, "How could that be? Those people are nothing to worry about." Just then, the boss's phone rang. "Boss, it's bad. Someone sprayed paint all over the studio. You should come back and take a look." "What? Who did this?" "Boss, we checked the surveillance, and it was a bunch of underage kids." "Underage?" I apologized. "Boss, I'm sorry for dragging you into this," he replied. "This isn't your fault." "Why are you blaming yourself? I think the people behind this were intentionally targeting you." I nodded. He asked, "Do you know who did it?" His eyes lit up. I said, "Those little brats are Ethan's stalker fans. And since they're all minors, even if they kill or set fire, they won't face any legal consequences." He asked, "Ethan, is that the boyfriend of your sister?" "Yes." "So your injuries were also caused by these people targeting you?" "Yes." A bitter smile appeared on my face. He said, "Seems like Ethan is more cunning than I thought. He doesn't do it himself, but incites his fans to target you." "Boss, I'm sorry. Don't apologize." "Don't worry. I'll get to the bottom of this. Even if I can't get those kids to pay, I'll make their parents pay for it." I said, "Boss, I'll compensate for the damages to the studio, and also I'll be heading back home soon." "Can you keep my resignation private?" he asked. "Do you not want your sister to know?" "Yes." He nodded and said, "All right." When the boss left, he didn't make me pay anything. In fact, after hearing I was getting married, he not only waived the compensation, but even gave me extra salary as a wedding gift. He said, "Remember to send me an invitation when you get married. I'll come to cheer you on." Okay. The boss left with a smile. I spent a few more days in the hospital, lost in thought. During that time, Rose didn't call once and I had given up on her. Chapter 10. Finally, I was discharged after my stitches were removed. The boss called to say he had found some evidence. However, when he was preparing to sue the stalker fans, Lou Corporation was worried about how it would affect Ethan's reputation. So they paid a large sum of money to cover it up. No one dared report on it now. I had already known this would be the outcome. When I returned home still weak from my injuries, the house was as empty as ever. It seemed Rose hadn't been back in a while. As I went to the storage room to grab my suitcase, I found that my belongings were in disarray thrown on the floor. The photos of me were slashed with a sharp object, and my diary, the one where I wrote all my affection for Rose, had been torn to shreds. At that moment, my phone buzzed with a notification. An excerpt from my diary detailing my feelings for Rose had been posted online. The backlash was immediate, and the internet was flooded with people condemning me, calling me shameless for having feelings for my own sister. I was stunned. Rose's angry voice came through the phone. She said, "Robert, I told you before that our relationship shouldn't be exposed. Why did you do this? Don't you know doing this won't just ruin me, it'll ruin you too. It might even take down the entire Lou Corporation with you." I had nothing to say. After all, those affectionate words in the diary were mine. Rose then issued a statement through Lou Corporation claiming that she and I only had a sibling relationship and no romantic feelings. No feelings at all. Fine, in that case, let's end it here. I gathered my belongings from the floor, throwing the photos into the charcoal stove to burn them. After cleaning up the storage room, I packed up what little luggage I had left and prepared to leave. At that moment, Rose rushed in. She slapped me across the face as soon as she entered. "Robert, look at what you've done. Do you know that because of that diary, Lou Corporation's stock price has plummeted?" I said, "This isn't my fault. You might want to look into who did it." I turned my head and stared directly at Rose. Ethan placed his hand on Rose's shoulder, smiling as he cryptically said, "Rose, I think there's something fishy about this. Maybe someone with bad intentions, or perhaps certain people were used by our enemies." Rose said, "Fine. If I find out you did this, I won't let you. Off the hook." After saying that, she didn't even notice my pale face. Ethan shot me a cold look, a smile of victory flickering in his eyes. In the end, it was the stalker fans who did all this, and it had nothing to do with him. Besides, those fans were minors. Even if I wanted to sue them, I had nowhere to go. Ethan probably just wanted to watch Rose slowly become disillusioned with me and return to his side. I stood there stubbornly waiting until their figures disappeared before I took out my phone and called a cab to the airport. When I sat in the cab, I glanced back at the villa I had lived in for 6 years. It held so many memories of Rose and me, happy ones, romantic ones, moments filled with joy and other intimate memories. But now it didn't matter anymore. She no longer belonged to me. The cab drove off. Chapter 11 at Sea City Airport. When the plane landed, I slowly looked away, returning my gaze to the real world. I was back after 6 years. During those 6 years, I hardly ever came back. My parents and 2 older sisters would send videos every year during the holidays asking why I didn't come back. I would always use the excuse that work was too busy to return. Once, when my older sisters insisted on coming to spend the new year with me, I ended up temporarily moving into the apartment they had bought for me. I tidied up and decorated it just enough to appease them. My relationship with Rose was a secret that couldn't be exposed. Over the years, I had kept this secret, and the love no one knew about living in both pain and sweetness. But now I no longer wanted it. I took my suitcase and walked through the crowd, leaving the airport. The familiar buildings caught my eye. After all these years, the airport hadn't changed a bit. It looked just the same as when I left 6 years ago. But 6 years had passed and everything was different. I was no longer the naive young man I had been back then. I was now a mature man. My older sister's call came through. "Robert, are you really back this time? You're not fooling me, are you?" Her voice sounded uncertain, as if she thought I was lying again. Yes, I had promised many times to come home for the new year, but in the end I couldn't bear to leave Rose alone, so I stayed in City A. I said, "Yeah, I'm back." And this time, "I'm not leaving." My sister replied, "Not leaving? Well, now that you're back, let's get married. We're all waiting for you to carry on the family line and have children." I laughed. "Big sis, don't tease me. By the way, when are you going to find me a brother-in-law?" She said, "Forget about a brother-in-law. I'm busy right now and can't pick you up, but I've sent your fiancée to meet you. She should be arriving soon." I nodded. "All right." I was actually curious to see what my fiancé, whom I had never met, looked like. From what my sister said, they seemed very pleased with her. If they were satisfied, that was good enough for me. I trusted my family not to set me up. However, I waited outside the airport for a long time, getting increasingly anxious. I took out my phone to ask where she was. Just then, I heard the roar of a motorcycle engine. I looked up and the bike came straight toward me. I could see that the rider was a young woman, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for her. But why was she riding straight at me? I took a step back, almost losing my balance on the stairs. Just as I steadied myself, the motorcycle braked sharply and stopped right in front of me. I stared blankly at the young woman on the bike. She was dressed in a leather jacket, her long legs encased in leather boots and pants that hugged her graceful figure. Her slender fingers pulled off her black helmet, revealing her dark, glossy hair. She was effortlessly cool. I had never seen a woman ride a motorcycle so confidently and stylishly before. Actually, I'd always had a dream of riding a motorcycle when I was younger, but as I grew up, I realized that it wasn't really in line with my personality. Being the pampered child of my family, anything dangerous was always avoided, and I was well protected. Chapter 12. Beneath her long black hair was a delicate, beautiful face. I stared at the young woman in front of me, stunned by her beauty. She looked so young. How could she possibly be riding a motorcycle at this age? Was she even of legal age? She said, "Robert." Her beautiful eyes met mine, a hint of a smile dancing in them. I asked, I paused for a moment. Could this be my fiancé? She smiled brightly and said, "Hello, I'm Valentina, your fiancé." Valentina smiled as she spoke, and I was instantly captivated by her smile. "Hello," I stammered, extending my hand. But then I saw the bandages on my hand and quickly retracted it. I said, "Sorry, I have an injury on my hand." She asked, "Is it serious?" Before I could answer, she grabbed my wrist, clearly intent on checking my injury. I said, "It's okay." She frowned. "Okay. You've wrapped it up this thick and you're saying it's okay. Come on, I'll take you to the hospital to get it checked out." There was a coldness in her eyes for a brief moment, but it quickly vanished. I protested, "No need, I've already had it treated."